Hey, this is Marriage on the Rock, week five, and we've actually got a lot of testimonies out of this class so far of cool stuff happening, so really excited about that. Husbands acting better, so that's been cool. I almost said wives acting better, but I'm not stupid, so husbands acting better. Hey, tonight we're going to do something a little different. For the past several weeks, we've been walking through what we would call the principles of marriage, like the principles of marriage that God gives us in Scripture, not that we came up with, that are in the Bible, because that's what's important. But we've talked about foundations, we've talked about guarding the covenant, we've talked about understanding each other, and we're going to key in on more of that stuff. We've talked about patterns, we've talked about patterns that will strengthen your marriage instead of weakening your marriage. So we're going to step back tonight just a little bit and we'll look at the big picture. Because I'm a big picture thinker. You could put me in a class for 5 or 6 weeks and go over all this stuff, but then I really need to see it from like 10,000 feet to grasp it. So that's what we're going to do a little bit tonight. And then we've got questions you've sent in. You can ask questions live, but I know that can be awkward because your spouse is here. So we do have questions you sent in, and you've sent in some questions, and some of them I'm going to have Nicole answer. So
we're going to put them in ChatGPT and push play.
No, not doing that. Nicole. Anyway, so let's step back and look at the big picture, because here's the deal. If you're not careful, you can, and I'm like this too, you can hear a lot of information but miss the structure, right? So tonight is really about kind of identifying the foundations that actually hold a marriage together, okay? So we talked about this in week 1. A house can have beautiful paint, can have nice furniture, can have great decorations, but the foundation is weak and eventually everything else cracks, right? That was kind of week 1. And marriage works the same way. Strong marriages are not accidental. They're built intentionally on the right foundations, okay? So let's talk about what we would call the 5 pillars or 5 principles that hold up a marriage that lasts, okay? And if you forget everything else we've said in this series, these 5 things will put you in the right direction. If you forget all the other weeks, these 5 things will put you in the right direction, okay? Number 1, Christ must be the foundation. Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 and 25 says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it's built on bedrock. It's built on bedrock, right? So Jesus says something really important here. He doesn't say storms might come. He says storms will come. Yep. So every marriage experiences storms. Every marriage is going to have seasons of stress. Every marriage is going to have seasons of misunderstanding. Every marriage is going to have seasons of exhaustion or disappointment. Storms are a part of life. And so the real question is not whether storms show up. The real question is what marriage is built on when the storms do show up. Because many marriages, that's why the divorce rate in America is so high, many marriages are built on feelings, right? But here's the deal. Feelings change. And then, of course, some marriages are built on compatibility, but compatibility, man, how many know you go through seasons of your marriage where you feel less compatible? Nobody will admit that, okay. But compatibility cannot carry the weight of real life. The strongest marriages, the ones that last, are not built on emotions, are not built on compatibility, they're built on Christ. They're built on Christ. Because when Christ is the center of a marriage, both people are being shaped by the same thing. And whether you're in different seasons of life, or your emotions are different, or you're going through different, men can go through this, women can go through this, age is changing, things are shifting. No matter what's happening in your individual lives, if you're both being shaped by the same truth, which is Christ, you can hold it together. Because what does it mean to be shaped by Christ? Well, Christ teaches humility. Christ teaches forgiveness. Christ teaches sacrifice. Christ teaches patience. And when 2 people are both submitting their lives to Christ, that marriage has a foundation of humility. It has a foundation of forgiveness. It has a foundation of sacrifice. It has a foundation of patience. And when a marriage has those as the foundation, it can hold up to the pressure of life, right? So that's kind of you have to remember that Christ is the foundation.
Which is why prayer matters in marriage. We've talked about it doesn't have to sound spiritual. You don't have to have a 15-minute thou, thee, and half of you don't know what I'm even talking about. King James Version Bible prayer. It doesn't have to sound spiritual. It's about remembering we're not trying to build our marriage alone. When a couple invites God into their decisions, into the conflicts, into the struggles, and the foundation becomes stronger than your emotions.
Yeah.
Number 2, marriage requires pursuit. Genesis 2:24. This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Think back however far before you were married. Marriage begins with pursuit. There was a season before the wedding where you pursued each other. You planned time together. You listened intently to what they were saying because you were interested. You noticed details, or some people noticed too many details and halfway stalked me before we were officially dating. That's a whole story. He all of a sudden likes the Green Bay Packers.
We're on camera.
Statute of limitations, you're good. He said he liked the Green Bay Packers. He didn't. He liked Dallas, y'all. Like, of all the other football teams in the nation.
But you liked it.
I liked Green Bay. Yeah.
No, listen, I didn't stalk you. I knew your movements and like where you were staying and
Where I lived, when I was sick, he did show up with a ginormous tote of chicken noodle soup and all the things. So, you notice details.
you were the first girl I dated that could talk in like complete sentences. You know what I mean? Like
The bar wasn't high, y'all.
Oh, we married her.
rest of them were from Muskogee. I just couldn't. Yeah. Sorry. Anyways, keep going.
I derailed, but you noticed details. Lots of details, some details, but you invested attention. Like it was super intentional. And one of the biggest mistakes couples will make is that assuming that pursuit is no longer needed because you're married now. It'll all be fine. But the marriage does not maintain itself.
Say that again. Marriage does not maintain itself.
No.
That's a big deal. Because a lot of times we'll meet with couples and it's like, man, it just doesn't feel right anymore. Things just aren't going good anymore. It doesn't maintain itself.
No.
Like, I was thinking what to compare marriage to. It's not, lawnmower is probably not a good thing.
Garden.
But garden, you got to water the garden. But it doesn't maintain itself. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to do work. And so that's really, if you stop pursuing your spouse, what happens? Distance grows. And what does that really mean? You stop maintenance. Right? You stopped caring about what they cared about. You stopped doing things they wanted to do. You stopped maintenance, right? Not because love disappears, but because attention shifts, right? Yeah.
That connection has to be cultivated. If you stop pursuing your spouse, that distance will slowly begin to grow. Like you just said, not because love disappears, but because your attention shifts. All of your attention shifts to something else. And yes, jobs grow demanding, schedules fill up, kids require energy, a lot of energy some days. And then slowly the marriage becomes something that just exists. It's just over here. You're like, oh, it'll always be over here. And that has to be nurtured intentionally.
Yeah.
A healthy marriage, you never stop pursuing each other.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember pursuits don't have to be dramatic, right? How many when you get kids and you get jobs and you get careers and man, your wife has to be a priority, but it doesn't change the fact that you do have a schedule, right? It doesn't change the fact that you do have work and you do have kids and you do have a career and you do have your kids' stuff. I mean, none of that can come before your marriage, but also you have to understand that pursuit does not have to be dramatic, right? It can often be simple. Nicole talked about this at some point, but it's asking how your spouse's day went and actually listening. And man, for guys, that's hard. At least it is. That's tough. Like we're not active we are active listeners. When we're listening, we're actively trying to figure out how to get out of the conversation or fix what you're talking about, right? It's just the way our brain's wired. So we have to step back and know, I'm just going to listen, right? It's asking how the day went and actually listening. It's putting your phone down when you're talking. That's hard to do sometimes. It's remembering what matters to your spouse, right? It's those small acts of attention and that communicate, you still matter to me. Listen, everybody's got their own thing, right? Everybody's got their own thing. I used to make blanket statements. I grew up and stopped doing that. Not every woman likes the same thing. Not every guy likes the same thing. Not every, there's this book, The 5 Love Languages. It gets a little played out because everybody's heard of it, but it is really important. It's really important. because you got to know what your spouse's language is, right? I mean, you may want your spouse's language to be physical touch, and it's not. It's acts of service. But maybe yours is physical touch. But if you do some more acts of service, maybe physical touch. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to know your spouse's language. For Nicole, I think it's all 5. But I just try to crack the code some days. No, I'm just, you'd call me a stalker.
I said you're past your statute of limitations. You're good.
But like for me, it's like, man, we got married January 2nd, 2010. So I got to this point in my life where I started celebrating her every month instead of once a year, right? Then it turned into twice a month and things got out of hand. But now I spend a lot on flowers. But not every woman likes flowers, right? So find out what your husband likes, what your wife likes, right? And just put in a couple of minutes of effort. It doesn't have to be dramatic, right? But pursuit can't stop if you want your marriage to stay strong. So if it is small acts of attention that communicate you still matter. It's not the big grand stuff. A lot of times it's not the big grand stuff because it's our money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't do anything for her when
Birthdays and Christmas. We're like, no, don't.
Yeah. So I'm not saying you can't do big stuff. That's not what I mean. I'm just saying small acts of attention absolutely communicate you still matter to me. Okay. So that second thing is really, really important. Marriage requires pursuit. The third thing, that if you only remember 5 things, is guard the covenant. Because that's what marriage is. It's not just, hey, we're getting married, it's fun. It's a covenant. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life.
Marriage is not only something you build, it is something you protect. The Bible repeatedly tells us that wisdom involves guarding what matters most. Your covenant requires protection. Guarding your heart means paying attention to influences that slowly weaken that intimacy. Emotional distance, unhealthy comparisons, private conversations that should not exist, digital habits that create that secrecy, small comparisons that feel harmless, but they're slowly eroding the trust with the other person.
Yeah.
Most marriages are not destroyed by one large mistake. They are weakened by a series of small, unguarded decisions, time over time after time.
Yeah.
Which is why Scripture says to guard the heart above everything else. Because what happens in the heart eventually shapes the direction of the relationship.
Yeah, and I think we got to remind ourselves, protection's not about control. Right? Don't be a control freak. That's not what protection is. Protection's about wisdom, right? When you value something deeply, you protect it intentionally. Marriage is worth protecting. So you got to guard the covenant, right? You got to guard yourself from words that tickle your ears. You know what I'm saying? That you like hearing. I mean, who doesn't like hearing, hey, you're handsome, you're pretty, whatever. I mean, sure, who doesn't like hearing that? But you got to guard yourself, because if the wrong person's telling you that stuff, it's not good. You got to guard the covenant. You got to guard the covenant, So that's really important. Number 4, the fourth thing that you got to remember from this series is understanding changes everything. Understanding changes everything. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7 says, your husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding, right? Understanding.
Because understanding is one of your most powerful tools in marriage. Most marital conflict is not rooted in bad intention. It's rooted in misunderstanding. Newsflash, if you didn't know, men and women process emotions differently. Really. That's what you need to know. They respond to stress differently. They interpret communication differently. The whole opposites attract thing, When couples don't understand these differences, they begin misreading each other's behavior. A husband's silence may be interpreted as indifference when he is actually processing. A wife's emotional intensity may be interpreted as criticism when she's actually seeking connection.
Yeah.
Understanding does not eliminate conflict, but it will reduce unnecessary conflict.
Yeah.
And when you take time to understand your spouse's perspective, you stop reacting to assumptions and start responding with wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about, and Nicole talked about, was understanding creates safety. Safety creates connection. Connection creates intimacy. It all starts with understanding, right? So when someone feels understood, their defense is lower, right? Their defense is lower. I mean, that's in every area of your life, not just marriage, by the way. In any conflict you're in, if you will be understanding, the defenses, the offenses, and the defenses of the situation lower, right? It's one of the first sales technique we learned at finance school. When I went to finance school in 2008, they taught us this. It's so great I can't remember it. But feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. Lots of people felt that way, but what we found. It was just like, what was that all about? It was using human emotions, right, to lower offenses and defenses. It's the same in a marriage. When defenses lower, communication becomes possible again, right? So understanding creates safety. Safety creates connection. Connection creates intimacy, right? So the fifth thing, healthy patterns build healthy marriages. Healthy patterns build healthy marriages. Romans chapter 12, verse 10 says, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other.
Because a healthy marriage is not built on an occasional effort. It's built on consistent patterns over time. When you have small patterns practiced over time, that shapes the atmosphere of a marriage. Patterns of connection, of communication, patterns of honor, patterns of prayer. If those patterns are healthy, your marriage will grow stronger. If the patterns are neglected, you're going to see the marriage slowly weaken.
Yeah.
But good news is that patterns can change. So new habits can be built this week, and new rhythms can restore connection.
Yeah, so let's do the 5 practices real quick, and then we'll go to the Q&A, okay? These are the 5 practices that will reinforce the foundation of your marriage. Because every one of these times we've said, hey, do these 5 things. So these are like the 5 main things, okay, that you should do every week, always practice these 5 things. Number 1, protect daily connection. That's in your grow notes you've had previously. Protect daily connection. Speak honor and appreciation intentionally. Resolve conflict instead of avoiding it. Man, that's a big one. It doesn't work to just stew on it and never talk about it, right? At the same time, you can't be somebody who there does come a point in time when you can move on from something, right? I mean, because there's 2 different sides of the spectrum here. There's a spectrum of I don't want to talk about anything, but then there's this other side of the spectrum that's like, I got to talk it into the grave, dig it back up, talk it back into the grave, grip it back up. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the trap of marriage counseling sometimes, by the way. And I'm pro-marriage counseling. I counsel with a lot of married couples, and if it gets too crazy, I ship them out to somebody smarter. But listen, one of the traps of marriage counseling, I think marriage counseling is good. One of the traps is things can be going really good, and you go back to that weekly session and dig everything back up, right? There does come a point when you got to let that thing be buried, right? So don't let the pendulum swing from up here, I don't ever want to talk about anything, to up here, I want to talk about everything all the time, no matter what, talk about it again and again and again and again. Well, that's really hard. There's 2 words, and Nicole has said this, it's move on. That's the deal, right? Some point you have to move on. So resolve conflict instead of avoiding it. Guard your heart and your covenant. Keep Christ at the center of your relationship. So if you will be a married couple that protects daily connection, speaks honor and appreciation, resolves conflict instead of avoiding it, guards your heart and your covenant, keeps Christ at the center of your relationship, then your marriage can last. Then that's a foundation you can build a marriage on, right? And here's what we have to remember. Strong marriages are not perfect marriages.
Right. Yeah.
Strong marriages are not perfect marriages. How many of you know somebody with a perfect marriage? I mean, even if you think they have a perfect marriage, they don't, right? Strong marriages are not perfect marriages. Strong marriages are where 2 imperfect people continue choosing the right foundations. That's a strong marriage. 2 imperfect people continue choosing the right foundations, which is Christ. Christ is the center, right? Pursuit instead of neglect. Protection of the covenant. Understanding instead of assumption. Healthy patterns practiced daily. And here's the deal. When the foundations are present, a marriage can withstand more than anybody could ever imagine. That's the deal. You can withstand anything with the right foundation, right? And some of you went through stuff, man. You went through stuff in your marriage. You went through stuff with your kids. You went stuff with your parents. You know, a lot of us in here in that generation, you know what I mean? That generation, we're still kind of raising kids, but then your parents are, you know, you're sandwiched, right? And so that's a hard generation to be in. That's a hard season. But if your marriage is built on the rock of Jesus, you can withstand all those seasons. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now it's time for Nicole to do the Q&A. Come on, somebody. Actually, Pastor Clint sent out a message saying all questions were good questions. He should be answering these questions. So, all right, let's answer. These are all good questions. I'm going to do the comfortable ones, and Nicole's going to do the uncomfortable ones. Let's just do it. Let's jump in. These are your questions. Now, listen, we also have people watching online that watch the feed. This could be their questions. So don't look at your spouse and say, you asked that,
Don't try to figure out who asked.
Let's not do all that, all right? This is a good one, and this is a question that gets asked a lot when talking about marriage. We feel like roommates. What do we actually do to fix that? Well, first, you got to understand something. This is incredibly common after kids, after careers, and busy schedules, right? Roommate marriages, all right, happen when connection gets replaced, what would be the word here? With logistics. When connection gets replaced with logistics, your marriage becomes a roommate marriage. And listen, the fix for that is not just a weekend getaway. The fix is daily reconnection, right? The fix is daily reconnection. And we've actually talked about that. We've talked about things you can do. So here, let me give you 3 practical steps for this question. And these aren't on the Grow Notes because they're questions, but what we will do is next week we'll have the answers to these questions on paper for you. So the fix is not just a weekend getaway, it's daily reconnection. So here's 3 things you can do immediately. You can have daily 20-minute reconnects, right? We've talked about that. Phones away, no problem solving. Ask good questions like, what stressed you today? What made you smile today? How can I support you? Like, what can I do to help your day tomorrow? Like, these are just questions. When you got to put your phones away and you got to lock the world out, you know, it's going to be awkward for a minute, especially if you've been disconnected. But eventually you're going to have to come into some talking here, right? So daily 20-minute reconnects, right? And then the second thing, this is really cool. Nicole and I don't always do this. I'll be honest with you. We're trying to put some of this to practice, but we're not roommates, by the way. But that just made that sound bad. But weekly marriage meetings. We don't do that all the time. I mean, we definitely have moments where we come together and stuff. But weekly marriage meetings, I love this. Pastor George and Meredith do this, but it's once a week. Sit down for 30 minutes, right? A marriage meeting. It's not really a business meeting, it's a marriage meeting. How are we doing emotionally? Is there anything bothering you, right? What do we need more of right now? This is not a fight. This is not a confrontation. This is, hey, how are you doing and how am I doing and how can we help each other be doing better, right? So 20 minutes a day, just checking in, a reconnect, right? 30 minutes a week, a real, that could even be an hour a week, right? Okay. And then the third thing, monthly date that cannot be canceled. This is important. And man, I talk to people a lot of times that say, I don't have time for a date. I just want to explain something to you. I got 3 kids. Nicole's got a job. I got a job. I pastor the greatest people in the world, and they're not needy at all. But, things are busy sometimes, everybody. We practice this, and it's helped our marriage tremendously, And depending on the age of your kids, it obviously gets a little easier, right? If you have older kids and younger kids, your older kids can stay with your younger kid, right? That's kind of where we're at. But man, monthly date that cannot be canceled. If you can't figure out 1 hour or hour and a half or 2 hour window every 31 days to invest in your marriage, you don't want your marriage to be good. That's the truth. It's an hour and a half to 2 hours every 30 to 31 days, right? If you can't figure that out, you don't want a good marriage. You may say, that's harsh. It's supposed to be harsh because, again, how many hours in a day? 24, 31 days. 1 monthly date that cannot be canceled will help you begin to reconnect, right? Now, eventually you'll love that so much, you'll be like, we got to figure out how to leave these kids at home twice a month. Everybody, Okay, so these are just 3 things, man. If you feel like roommates, daily 20-minute reconnect. You say, hey, neither of us are talkers. 10 minutes. Just give 10 minutes, okay?
Start with 2.
10 minutes. But that reconnect could be anything, man. Just, if you're not talkers, it'd be a good time to start kissing a little bit, everybody. but do something, but daily 20-minute reconnect, weekly marriage meeting, monthly date that cannot be canceled. If you'll do that and you'll put Christ at the center, the roommate thing can start to fade. Don't beat yourself up. Like, that's a great question. And more marriages are there than you think they are. Not because they stopped loving each other, because they replaced what? They replaced connection with logistics, right? So we feel like roommates. How would we actually do to fix that? I would encourage you, 20-minute reconnect, weekly marriage meetings, monthly date that cannot be canceled, okay? Here, I'll let you take that one. It's not hard.
We keep having the same argument every week.
Oh, that was the tame one. All right, go ahead.
You already passed it. You can't take it back. That could mean you're arguing about symptoms, not the root.
Yeah.
Most reoccurring arguments come down to one of 3 needs: feeling respected, feeling heard, and feeling prioritized. So the real fix can be when the argument starts, pause and ask, what do you actually need from me right now? And then the other person answers with one sentence, not like everything they've ever done wrong in the last.
What if they say, like, I need you to shut up right now? That would be bad, right?
That would be discouraged.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Clarifying here.
Are you?
Yeah.
Maybe you say, I need you to listen without fixing it. I've said that a time or 2. Or I need you to acknowledge that I worked hard. This stops the cycle. James 1:19 mentions to us, be quick to listen, slow to speak. Listening solves half the fights that couples have. Actively listening.
Yeah, that's the key. Be quick to listen, slow to speak. That's true. Listening solves half the fights couples have. Because we're in the middle of it, man. I don't know what kind of individual you are. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but like, I kind of got a short fuse. Like, I don't know. I can be quick, and then 5 minutes later, like, what in the world? That was no reason to say that, no reason to do that, no reason to, you know what I mean? No reason to get as mad as over that. You have to train yourself. Maybe you were born into an environment of quick fuses, right? Some of you, maybe you I'm Cherokee Indian and Irish. I've used that as an excuse for a long time. It's not an excuse, right?
It's a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice. So in those moments of pressure, those moments of conflict, when you say, hey, we got this same argument every week, a part of that is burying it and keeping it buried, right?
Go on.
Being quick to resolve it and then moving on. But part of it is just fighting fair. Fighting fair. Not fighting with words that are going to cut, I'll use this a lot in marriage counseling, and people look at me like I have 5 eyeballs, but I say, hey, what would you do? And I mentioned this week 1. What would you do if the police showed up at your door today and said your wife or your husband are dead? What would you do? What would your emotions be like? What would your reaction be? And then start thinking about all the useless fights that you've been in. And if it got to that point in time, would you say, man, I'm sure glad we had those fights? Well, no, of course not. Say that was stupid that we argued about that. Well, what if you could take that into reality now?
Practice it.
What if you could practice that now? It's hard, but it's doable, right? It's doable. So we'll put all these answers on paper so we keep having the same arguments every week. You want the next one?
Nope.
Okay. Here we go. All right. We barely have sex anymore. How do we fix that? Well, here's the deal. This is biblical. Okay? This is biblical. I drank this coffee like it was something else.
What's in your cup?
Had to wet my whistle. Here's the thing. Jimmy Evans talks about this. This is very biblical. You have to talk about this stuff. It's awkward, but sex problems are almost never just sex problems. They're connected. Jimmy Evans talks about this in Marriage on the Rock. They're connected to stress. They're connected to unresolved conflict. They're connected to exhaustion. They're connected to emotional disconnection. right? It's never, the thing is never the thing, right? There's a root to the thing. And that's what you have to understand. But yeah, you're in this marriage where intimacy has stopped, connection has stopped. But it's not just because of that. It's because emotional connection has stopped. It's because conflict resolution has stopped, right? It's because listening has stopped. Everything leads to this, by the way, right? Everything we're talking about leads to this. Remember, like safety beats connection, intimacy. It all comes together, right? So let me just give you 3 steps, okay? 3 steps how to fix this. Not what you think I'm going to say, everybody. So 3 practical steps. Fix your relationship outside of physical intimacy first. Fix your relationship outside of physical intimacy first, right? Okay, what does that mean? If emotional connection is weak, physical intimacy struggles, right? You got to fix that first. How do you fix that? Everything we've been talking about.
It all plays together.
Daily connections, check-ins, date nights, listening without taking over the conversation, being quick to listen, slow to speak, doing kind things for your spouse. You know, when it comes to physical intimacy, it's like men and women are wired differently, of course. But you know, that's kind of a blanket statement because sometimes the man is more wired like that's going to sound weird. People are just wired differently, right? Everyone's different. So like, if you want that intimacy in your relationship, it's got to start somewhere. The problem with men, a lot of men, I'm going to stop using generalizations, is we think physical intimacy starts with physical intimacy. Man, it just doesn't. It starts 8 hours before that, and 16 hours before that, and 36 hours before that, everybody.
And the dishes after dinner before that.
I'm out on the dishes. I'm out. Anyway,
or make those teenagers do it, and then y'all go have a conversation.
So it's the thing is never the thing, right? The thing is never the thing. And what's hard is, and lots of marriage experts talk about this, if we're not careful, we turn marriage into a combination lock, right? Like one to the right, one to the left, like how do I fix this? How do I fix that? Don't complicate it. Just figure out why you used to love each other. Figure out the connections you used to have. Start dating again. Start talking again. Start listening again. Start acting like your wife matters. Start acting like your husband matters, right? And if you do that, things begin to come back into play, but it's a process. It just doesn't happen overnight. Right. Like, guys, don't tomorrow buy your wife flowers and say, hey, I'm ready. How was your day? And listen, and then think, well, hey, hello, look what I did. It's a process, right? It's a process. And the same time, I would say women, don't hold actions over your spouse's head and expect them to do everything right all the time.
It's not a bargaining chip.
Yeah. So, man, it can be fixed, and there's probably better answers than this, and we'll put some stuff on paper, but, you know, fix your relationship outside of physical intimacy first, right? Number 2, man, this is talked about. Jimmy Evans talks about this. Lots of marriage books talk about this, is if you're having problems in this area, but you say, hey, we do connect emotionally, we do have these things, guys, as weird as this sounds, a lot of stuff in your life is scheduled. You might need to schedule this one. It's just a part of it, right? It's a part of having kids. It's a part of having jobs. That sounds unromantic, but listen, put time together. But it's the same thing we talked about, the weekly check-in, the date night that can't be canceled. Put time together on the calendar so life does not crowd it out, right? Whatever that looks like for you, okay? And the third thing is you got to talk honestly. You got to talk honestly about expectations, right? What helps you feel connected? What hurts your emotional connection, right? What shuts down connection for you? You got to talk to your spouse about that stuff, because healthy intimacy inside of a healthy marriage requires healthy communication, right? Healthy intimacy inside a healthy marriage requires healthy communication. Now, you notice I'm saying marriage, right? If you're not married, you shouldn't be having sex, everybody. Just want to make that clear for the camera. Okay. Healthy intimacy in a healthy marriage requires healthy communication. Okay? Thanks a lot, Nicole. Appreciate your help on that one.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, what about this one? What if I feel resentment towards my spouse? What if I feel resentment towards my spouse? Why don't you do that?
Resentment might mean a hurt that never was processed. Resentment grows when people say, I'm fine, it's okay, but it wasn't fine.
Those are the two worst words in the English language. It's fine.
Well,
Or I'm fine.
true.
Right? Anyways,
Yeah.
keep going.
That goes back to conversation. Don't answer with I'm fine. Say what's going on. But don't try to fix it either.
It's like climbing a mountain at nighttime and you can't see the boulders around. Anyways. Sorry.
It's not an avalanche. Saying it's fine, but it wasn't fine. The healthy step is naming the hurt clearly. Use this sentence. When this happened, it made me feel, and then respond.
Okay. When this happened, it made me feel this way. Okay, that's an important communication tool. But the other side of that, if your spouse uses that, when this happened, it made me feel this way, you can't say, why would you feel that way?
Right.
Because feelings are feelings, right? Her feelings are not my feelings. I may not understand all her feelings. She may not understand all my feelings. But if I say, when this happened, it made me feel this way, if I will respond correctly and say, you know what? I didn't see that. I'm sorry. Man, that changes the communication game in our marriage. But if I respond, that's dumb. Well, what have I done?
Well.
I've created insecurity. I've created lack of safety. And then what happens? I don't have any intimacy. All these are tied together, right? When this happened, it made me feel, and then allow the other person to respond, right?
Because when you have those conversations, when you're open with those conversations, forgiveness becomes possible.
Yeah.
Colossians 3:13 says, make allowance for each other's faults. Unspoken pain always turns into resentment. So have the conversation.
Yeah. We may not get to all these tonight because we're out of time, but let's get to these for sure. What if trust has been broken? Man, that's an important question. I really thought about that because why has it been broken? You know, there's so many reasons trust can be broken. It could have been something major. It could have been something minor. Who knows? But let me just give you three kind of generalities. I mean, I'm not saying every situation sticks here, but lots of them do. So if trust has been broken, trust has to be rebuilt, right? It takes longer to rebuild trust than it took to break trust, right? That's the key. So trust rebuilds through, I think, three consistent behaviors, all right? One, radical honesty. Radical honesty. No hidden conversations, no secret devices, no unexplained absences, no money spending that the person didn't. Radical honesty about every area of your life. So you can rebuild trust living in radical honesty, right? The second thing is predictable consistency. What does that mean? Do what you say you will do every time, right? So you rebuild it with radical honesty, being predictably consistent, do what you say you're going to do every time. And the third way you rebuild it is patience. Trust rebuilds slowly. If you've broken your spouse's trust, don't beat yourself up. Condemnation is not from Jesus, conviction is. If you're convicted, be quick to repent. Don't beat yourself up. But understand, though Christ forgives quickly and your spouse hopefully forgives quickly, there's still a consequence on earth and human emotion saying you got to rebuild some stuff. Because they've forgiven you, but they don't yet fully trust you, right? But trust can be rebuilt, but it takes time. You got to trust, rebuild slowly. Now, time is different for everybody. If your spouse made a mistake, 19 months ago and you're still just beating them over the head with it, it might be time to have some really honest communication with yourself about, is this me or is this them? Does that make sense? I'm not downplaying what they did at all. I'm just saying at some point, grace has to come into this a little bit. Now, that's a generality because I don't know your situation, all right? But radical honesty, predictable consistency, and patience. I read this today, this quote. It says, when talking about rebuilding trust, this is, I think, really helpful when it's rebuilding trust. It's a phrase. You have every right to feel cautious. I'm committed to earning your trust again. Man, that's just giving your spouse, hey, you have every right to not trust me. But I love you and I'm committed to earning your trust. And if you tell your spouse that and you remind them of that, they need those reminders, right? They need those reminders. Trust begins with integrity becomes visible over time. When you've broken trust with your spouse, there's a question in their mind about your integrity. It doesn't mean you're not integral. It just means there's a question in their mind about your integrity. So that gets built over time as it becomes more visible, okay?
If I feel lonely even though I'm married. Loneliness in marriage usually means emotional intimacy has faded. And the fix is intentional vulnerability. That conversation, it goes back to conversation again, trying a conversational starter like, what is something you're carrying around that I might not know about? Or simply, what's been weighing on you lately? Depth returns when people talk about the inner world and not just the day-to-day tasks. So being intentional with what's really going on? How can I help you? What are you really thinking?
You know, one of the worst sentences, I mean, a lot of you have been married longer than us. We've been married 17 years, something like 18 years. Well, you should know that, everybody. But in dealing with a lot of married couples, one of the worst sentences ever, I will ask a wife or ask a husband, did you tell him that? And here's what they'll say. Basically.
Right.
No. Basically doesn't fix your marriage. Basically. No, that's code word for you kind of said it and you kind of did it and they have no idea what you're talking about. Right? That's bad communication. So what if I feel lonely even though I'm married? Tell them. Tell them. It's like a mind-blowing deal. Hey, I feel lonely. I feel disconnected. And you know what? A lot of times your spouse is going to rise to that occasion and say, hey, I don't want you to feel that way. Why do you feel that way? Because this, and this. And you may have to say, hey, I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. Well, hey, let's work on that together. Let's make sure. Are we doing the right stuff? Are we connecting weekly? Are we connecting monthly? Are we connecting daily? Do we have our 1, 2, 3 check-ins? Right? Just tell them. Not in a condemning way, not in a you stink way. Like, I just feel lonely. I feel like we're disconnected. But man, anytime I hear a married couple say, I basically told him or I basically told her, you know, it's just down from there because the communication is just not there. So just tell them, right? Let's do one more. How do we stop hurting each other with our words? Hey, this is a great question because words are a weapon in a marriage, okay? When Nicole and I first got married, I was great with words. I could cut her in half with my words.
That's why you were taller.
Before she...
I muttered that's how he became taller. Don't do that.
Did you just call me short? See, that's where I draw the line. Connection has been severed. Okay, severed. Anyways, words. I was really good with words because it's just, I don't know, man. It's just what I had been ingrained in me. Nicole wasn't good with words, so I could cut her down in a fight in 3 minutes, and she doesn't know what to say, and she's frazzled. That's not how you build a marriage. So it got to this point in our marriage as we progressed. It was like, hey, and then what happens? She starts being better with words because, you know, survival is innate in every human being. So she figures out in this marriage, if I'm going to survive, I got to be able to cut him down, right? Now we're cutting each other down, and now I've created a monster, right? That's how this thing works. So we had to come a point in our marriage where it's like, man, we're not going to do that. We're going to choose. That principle I talked to you about what if my wife wasn't here anymore? Would I regret saying that stuff? Game changer. Game changer.
You're not guaranteed tomorrow.
We're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed to walk outside of this place and take another breath on earth. Every man's appointed a time to die, then judgment. How do we want to go out? What's our legacy? What do we want the last words to our wife to be, the last words to our husband to be? Man, you're not guaranteed another breath. So make those words matter. It doesn't mean you're not going to have conflict, right? But we don't leave the house like that, ever. We may still be in conflict and have to work out some stuff later, but we don't leave the house without saying, hey, I love you, have a good day. You know, I mean, really. And honestly, Nicole is the one in our marriage that more pushes that than me because I stew on things longer, you know, but she'll act taller than me and say, give me a kiss right now. And whatever, you know, she'll kind of debo me around. But anyways, so that's the point though. Like, man, If I'm in this conflict and I'm hurting my spouse with my words, the power of life and death are in the tongue. What happens is we destroy our wife with our words. We destroy our husband with our words, but then we want them to rise to the occasion, right? Our physical intimacy isn't good. Our emotional intimacy isn't good. Nothing is working right. Well, yeah, but you called them this, and this over the past 30 days. What do you expect? You're calling what is not as though it was, and it's becoming that. That's biblical, right? You're either putting good things into your wife and your husband, or bad things into your wife and husband. And what you speak matters, right? And so we've just chosen a long time ago that what we speak to each other matters, right? What we say to each other matters. Affirmation matters, right? If I say, hey, Nicole, you're so dumb for thinking that, or Nicole, why do you always do that? You're this, you're that, you're that. Anything that starts with is bad, right? It's bad. So it's not because we don't love each other when we hurt each other with our words. It's that we haven't figured out another way to communicate. And if we'll figure out another way to communicate, that'll eventually replace that immature communication. Because that's what words are. When we're hurting each other, when we're breaking each other down, that's just immature communication, right? Think about that. That's what we did when we were dating in high school, everybody, right? This is the covenant partner that God gave us, right? And the Word of God says, men, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave his life for her. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. Now we can keep going and say, it says, women, come on. We have the same deal here. We have to treat each other. The Bible says we're joint heirs with Christ. So when I talk to her a certain way, I'm talking to an heir of Christ. I'm calling an heir of Christ that name. She's calling an heir of Christ that name. That's really heavy. You know what I'm saying? So I think when we can't stop hurting each other with our words, we have to realize that they're a weapon. So here's what we do. We got to agree together on rules. There's got to be rules of engagement in a healthy marriage. Number one, no name calling. No bringing up past arguments.
Leave it alone.
No threatening divorce. Now listen. No sarcasm during conflict.
I don't. That's a defense mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
You were good with words. I was good with sarcasm.
Most sarcastic person on the face of the planet. I know that surprises you about her, but she is. So she said to keep that under wraps. You know what I mean? So no name calling.
Let that go, remember?
We're working on it. But
we're moving on.
No bringing up past arguments, no threatening divorce, no sarcasm during conflict. And then if you get to the point where you're yelling and screaming, that's a real good time to take a break. Say, you know what? I need 10 minutes. Then we'll come back together. Because remember, it's not just what you're putting in your spouse. What are you putting in your kids?
In your household.
In your household. Guys, how do you want your daughters to allow their husbands to talk to them? How you talk to your wife is how your daughters will one day let their husbands talk to them. Vice versa. You understand what I'm saying? Women, how you talk to your husbands is going to be one day how your sweet little boys let their wives talk to them. What you put out there matters. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. Your kids are going to see you fight sometimes. Our kids have absolutely seen us fight. Our kids have absolutely went upstairs, I'm sure, at our house and said they need Jesus. I mean, they really, I promise you our kids have heard us fight. That's not the point. The point is we got to be quick to settle it down. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes apologize to our kids if we raised our voices. It's going to happen, but it's got to be very, very rare, right? Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, let everything you say be good and helpful. Remember, we talked about this. You can win an argument, but damage the covenant. You can win an argument, but damage the covenant. Because strong marriages, we got to end. Strong marriages are not built by perfect people. They're built by two people who keep choosing humility, honesty, commitment, even when things get hard. Okay, we'll finish some of this next week. Next week's our last week of Marriage on the Rocks, I think, right? I think it is. So, all right, we'll finish this next week. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for these people. Thank you for this. I pray for every marriage in our church, Lord, that it would continue to be strong and it would get stronger, and you would give us humility and patience. You would give us a new sense of honor for our spouse. Lord, you would restore intimacy, emotional intimacy. You would restore physical intimacy. You would restore everything that's been lost in marriages. And I pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.